Tombstone gave us the last great Western cast, and 6 of those faces are gone. One of them was handed a burial plot as a wrap gift and never used it. Another died 11 days after routine heart surgery. Here is where every one of them ended up. Number 1. For the last decade of his life, he could not speak above a rasp. Val Kilmer was diagnosed with throat cancer in 2014, and the 2 tracheotomies that kept him alive took away the voice he had built everything on. He kept working anyway. On screen, he had been Doc Holliday, the dying gambler who kills for a friend and drawls while doing it. Long before that, he was the youngest person then admitted to Juilliard's drama division. At 17, he lost his younger brother Wesley, who had epilepsy and drowned in the family hot tub at 16. Kilmer married the actress Joanne Whalley in March of 1988, and they had 2 children, Mercedes and Jack, before divorcing in 1996. Both children were with him at the end. The end came on the 1st of April 2025 at Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center in Los Angeles. He was 65. The death certificate lists pneumonia, with chronic respiratory failure and a carcinoma at the base of the tongue beneath it. Mercedes confirmed the death to the New York Times. 6 days later, he was cremated, and his family has never said where the ashes went. There is a marker for him in Arizona all the same. When this film wrapped in 1993, Kurt Russell bought him a burial plot in the Tombstone City Cemetery. Plot 41C. Kilmer owned that ground for 32 years. In August of 2025, the town dedicated a memorial on it, down in the lower section beside the road. He is not in it. Doc Holliday was a man who always knew exactly where he was going to die. Val Kilmer owned the grave and never got there. Second on this list, he directed most of this picture, and his name appears nowhere on it. Kevin Jarre wrote Tombstone and was hired to direct it, and the producer Andrew Voyneau removed him 3 or 4 weeks into shooting. George Cosmatos took the chair. Kurt Russell has said since that he handed Cosmatos a shot list every morning and made the film himself, having promised to stay quiet while Cosmatos lived. No directing credit ever came, and no directing money either. As Wyatt Earp, he was the retired lawman who wanted money and quiet, and got a war instead. Before acting claimed him, baseball nearly did. His father Biehn Russell had played in the minor leagues, and Kurt signed his own contract in 1971, playing second base in the California Angels organization and making the Northwest League All-Star team. 2 years later, in Class AA with the El Paso Sun Kings, a runner came into him on a double play and tore his rotator cuff. That ended it. Season Hubley married him in 1979, divorced him 4 years later, and gave him a son, Boston. Then came Goldie Hawn, and more than 40 years together without ever bothering with a wedding. Their son Wyatt was born in July of 1986, 7 years before his father put on Wyatt Earp's coat. Russell is 75 now, cast in the Yellowstone spin-off The Madison. He also bought a friend a grave. Val Kilmer gave him an acre of land on the hill above that Arizona graveyard, and Russell explained the trade simply. Doc Holliday was all about death. Wyatt was all about life. Wyatt Earp outlived nearly everyone in the story he was part of. So far, so has Kurt Russell. Third. The first Academy Award nomination of his life turned up when he was 74 years old. Sam Elliott had been in Los Angeles since the late 1960s, mixing concrete on construction sites to pay for acting lessons, and the business took half a century to hand him that nomination. He is Virgil Earp, the brother who takes the marshal's badge and is crippled by an ambush for it. His father Henry had told him flatly that acting was no way to make a living. Henry Elliott died of a heart attack while his son was enrolled at the University of Oregon, and it pushed Sam out of college for the second time. He finished a 2-year program at Clark College in Vancouver, Washington, and then went south with almost nothing. The California Air National Guard took him next into the 146th Airlift Wing, and roughly 2 decades of supporting work followed before the leading roles arrived. Catherine Ross married him in 1984. He was her 5th husband, and that marriage has now run more than 40 years, close to unheard of in this business. They have one daughter, Cleo, a musician, and they live in Malibu. At 82, he is still taking jobs. He turned up in the second season of Landman in 2025 as T.L. Norris, and he won a Screen Actors Guild Award for the series 1883. Virgil Earp was the brother who did the right thing and paid for it with his body. Sam Elliott spent 50 years being told he was a supporting player, and then somebody finally read his name out at the Academy Awards. The next man was photographed as an 8-year-old boy on the morning President Kennedy was shot, and his family spent 5 years in court over the way he died. Number 4. He walked into a hospital for a valve replacement, and 11 days later he was dead at 61. Bill Paxton had rheumatic fever as a child in Fort Worth, leaving him a damaged aortic valve. On the 14th of February 2017, surgeons at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles replaced that valve and repaired his aorta. By the 25th, he was dead of a stroke. Morgan Earp, the youngest brother, jokes through the whole build-up and is shot dead over a billiard table. What his family did next took 5 years. His wife, Louise Newberry, and their children James and Lydia sued Cedars-Sinai and the surgeon Dr. Ali Koy Nejad for wrongful death. The suit alleged that he had used a high-risk and unconventional approach he lacked the experience to perform, and had played down the risks. In February of 2022, the family settled with General Anesthesia Specialist Partnership for $1 million. On the 20th of August that year, weeks before a jury was due to hear the case, the surgeon and the hospital settled too, on confidential terms. The family lawyers, Bruce Broyley and Steve Heimberg, said only that the matter had been resolved to the mutual satisfaction of the parties. The way he died is not the whole of him. At 8, he was lifted above a crowd outside the Hotel Texas in Fort Worth to see President Kennedy on the morning of the 22nd of November, 1963. The photographs of that boy now hang in the 6th floor museum at Dealey Plaza. He met Louise Newberry on a bus in Twickenham and married her in 1987. Bill Paxton lies at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills, in the Court of Liberty section, map H36, lot 2104, Companion Garden Crypt 3. Morgan Earp is killed by something nobody in the room sees coming, in the middle of an ordinary evening. Bill Paxton went the same way, 61 years old, from a complication his family spent half a decade arguing should never have happened. If that ending sits badly with you, say so in the comments. I would like to know whether you think his family ever got anything close to justice. 5th. She was offered one of the most famous television roles of the following decade, and she said no. Darren Star wanted Dana Delany for Carrie Bradshaw in Sex and the City. She turned it down because she had already made 2 projects about sex and had been publicly hammered for one of them. On screen here she is Josephine Marcus, the traveling actress who rides, drinks, and refuses to be anybody's ornament. The film that cost her was Exit to Eden in 1994. She had come off China Beach, where she played the war nurse Colleen McMurphy and won 2 Primetime Emmy Awards. Audiences had a fixed idea of who she was, and they punished her for stepping outside it. Her father ran a plumbing manufacturer, and her mother was an interior designer, and she was born in New York City in March of 1956. Wesleyan gave her a theater degree in 1978. Soap operas and commercials paid the rent, and Off-Broadway gave her the reviews. She never married and has no children. In 2006, she said out loud that she had turned 50 and was ready to marry. It did not happen, and she has never apologized for the shape of her life. At 70, she plays Margaret Devereaux in Tulsa King. Josephine Marcus is written as a woman who chooses her own road and lets everybody else complain about it. Dana Delany turned down a fortune because she had learned exactly what the audience would forgive and what it would not. At number 6. In the autumn of 1980, the Screen Actors Guild was on strike, and almost nobody would go near the Emmy ceremony. Powers Boothe crossed the picket line, collected the award for playing Jim Jones in Guyana Tragedy, and told the room it might be the bravest moment of his career, or the dumbest. Very few actors were there at all. Here he is, Curly Bill Brochus, the red-sashed outlaw boss who murders a town marshal and grins about it. He was born at home on a cotton farm outside Snyder, Texas, in June of 1948, the youngest of 3 boys. His father named him Powers after a best friend killed in World War II. So the man carried a dead soldier's name through a degree at Southwest Texas State, a master's from Southern Methodist, and 40 years of playing men you would avoid on the street. Pam Cole was his college sweetheart. He married her in 1969 and stayed married for 48 years, until the morning he did not wake up. 2 children came of it, Paris and Preston. Cancer of the pancreas had been in him about 6 months when he died in his sleep at home in Los Angeles on the 14th of May, 2017, aged 68. The death certificate gives cardiopulmonary arrest caused by the cancer. His family held a private funeral in Texas and buried him at Deadwood Cemetery in Panola County, a small graveyard in the pine woods of East Texas, roughly 500 miles from the cotton farm he was born on. Curly Bill dies badly in a creek in this film, disbelieving to the last second. Powers Boothe died quietly at home after 48 years with the girl he met at college, and went into the ground in Texas under the name of a man he never met, 7th. In 2011, he sat down for an interview and said it plainly. His words were, "I am an alcoholic. I have been sober now for 3 years." Michael Biehn had spent years watching his career slide, and he has been open about the connection between the two. He is Johnny Ringo, the educated killer who twirls a cup like a revolver and mirrors Doc Holliday exactly. Aliens made him a star, and he got that part only because James Remar left and the production needed somebody fast. The Rock in 1996 was his biggest hit, and effectively his last big studio job. After it, the billing shrank, the screen time shrank with it, and the calls stopped. So he built something else. With his wife, the actress and producer Jennifer Blank, he began financing, writing, and directing his own films, including The Victim in 2011. Blank is his third wife. Carlene Olsen was his first, and Gina Marsh his second, a marriage that lasted 26 years and ended in 2014. He has 5 sons. Health has tested him since. He suffered a stroke and has spoken about the slow work of getting his confidence back and about facing heart surgery too. At 70, he is still taking jobs, including a voice role in Predator, Killer of Killers in 2025. Johnny Ringo is a man who has decided that nothing means anything. Michael Biehn lost the career he was supposed to have and then paid for his own films rather than sit by a telephone. The Man Who Comes Next recorded a message for the public in 2002 and used it to tell the world that his own memory was going. Number 8. On the 9th of August 2002, Charlton Heston released a recording telling the public he had been diagnosed with symptoms consistent with Alzheimer's disease. He did it in his own voice before anybody could report it for him. In this film, he is Henry Hooker, the rancher who shelters the Earp posse and will not be frightened off his own land. Born John Charles Carter in Illinois in October of 1923, he was taken as an infant to St. Helen, Michigan. His parents separated when he was 10, his mother remarried Chester Heston, and the children took the name. From 1944 to 1946, he served in the United States Army Air Forces as a radio operator and gunner on a B-25 bomber in the Aleutian Islands, leaving as a staff sergeant. In March of 1944, he married Lydia Clark in Greensboro, North Carolina, and that marriage lasted 64 years. They had 2 children, Fraser and Holly. He won the Academy Award for Best Actor for Ben-Hur, marched in Washington in 1963, and decades later served 5 terms as president of the National Rifle Association, which changed how much of Hollywood saw him. 6 years after that recording, on the 5th of April 2008, he died at home in Beverly Hills at 84, with Lydia beside him. Pneumonia following the Alzheimer's took him. About 300 people came to the funeral at St. Matthew's Episcopal Church in Pacific Palisades, and his ashes were placed in the columbarium there. In January of 2025, the Palisades fire tore through that community. The sanctuary was reported still standing. What became of the columbarium has never been publicly reported. Henry Hooker is a man of absolute certainty in a film full of men who are bluffing. Charlton Heston made a tape to tell the world he was losing the thing that made him certain. If these stories are worth your time, subscribe and stay with us. There is a new one every week, and we follow every life to the headstone. 9th on the list. His car hit a concrete wall head-on at close to 180 miles an hour. On the 11th of August, 2002, at Kentucky Speedway, Jason Priestley was on a practice run when his Indy Pro Series car slid on oil and struck two walls. He was flown to the University of Kentucky Medical Center with a fractured spine, a closed head injury, a broken nose and broken bones in both feet, then put on a respirator. In this film, he is the polite deputy Billy Breckenridge, present at every disaster and stopping none of them. Dr. Steven Stapczynski at the medical center told reporters he had no injury he should not recover from. Priestley later described the damage without flinching. He broke his spine, he shattered both feet, he tore his nose off his face, and he broke his orbital bone and his cheekbone. Tombstone came out when he was 24, at the peak of Beverly Hills 90210, where he had played Brandon Walsh since 1990 and collected 2 Golden Globe nominations. Behind the camera, he directed 15 episodes and stayed on as an executive producer until the series finished in 2000. His first marriage, to Ashley Peter Sen, in February of 1999, was over by the following January. Naomi Loud married him in May of 2005, and they are married still, with 2 children. At 56, he is the youngest survivor of this cast, currently leading Private Eyes, West Coast. Billy Breckenridge is the one ordinary man standing in a street full of killers. Jason Priestley walked away from a wreck that should have finished him and is now the last young face left from that summer. 10th. When he stepped into an Arizona street in 1993 to play a town marshal who gets shot in the stomach, he had already been making westerns for 46 years. Carey Jr. was the son of the silent-era Western star Harry Carey and the last surviving major member of John Ford's stock company. Fred White is a tired working lawman rather than a hero, which is why the killing feels like a crime. He served 6 years in the United States Navy during the Second World War as a pharmacist's mate second class in the Pacific, before transferring to work with John Ford on naval training films for the Office of Strategic Services. Ford kept him afterwards. 3 Godfathers, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, The Searchers, Cheyenne Autumn. He was in the room for most of the westerns people can still name, always in support, and he wrote a book about it in 1996 called Company of Heroes. Marilyn Fix, daughter of the actor Paul Fix, married him in 1944. That marriage lasted 68 years, and she outlived him by 5. They had 4 children, Stephen, Melinda, Thomas, and Patricia. Natural causes took him in Santa Barbara, California, on the 27th of December 2012 at 91. He rests at Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park, the small cemetery tucked behind the office towers on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles, easy to walk past without knowing it is there. Fred White is the man whose murder starts the whole avalanche. Carey Jr. was the last living link to the era of westerns that this entire film was built to imitate. One more name on this list is holding an Academy Award, and he won it 3 years after roughly 90 seconds of screen time in this picture. Number 11. He was hospitalized in Los Angeles with a heart condition that doctors put down to what he could afford to eat. Billy Bob Thornton had come out of Arkansas in the mid-1980s with nothing, working telemarketing and managing fast food, and the myocarditis was the price of that life. In this film, he lasts about 90 seconds as Johnny Tyler, the loudmouth who tries to run the faro table and is taken apart by Doc Holliday. He grew up across Alpine, Malvern, and Mount Holly. His father was a history teacher and basketball coach who died in 1974. Virginia, his mother, described herself as a psychic and lived until 2017. A brother, Jimmy Don, died in October of 1988, leaving songs that Thornton later recorded himself. 3 years after the faro table, he had an Academy Award. He wrote, directed, and starred in Sling Blade in 1996, won Best Adapted Screenplay, and was nominated for Best Actor too. 6 marriages sit on the record. Melissa Lee Gatlin, Tony Lawrence, Sindhu Williams, Pietra Dawn Cherniak, then Angelina Jolie from 2000 to 2003, and finally, Connie Angland, married in 2014 and married to him still. There are 4 children. The marriage that made every newspaper in the world lasted 3 years. The one nobody wrote about has lasted 12. At 71, he stars as Tommy Norris in Landman, and he has fronted a band, the Boxmasters, since 2007. Johnny Tyler is a nobody who gets humiliated and forgotten inside a minute. Billy Bob Thornton took that minute and turned it into an Academy Award, a recording career, and a life nobody in Hot Springs would have predicted. And the last name, number 12. He came to Arizona to play the patriarch of the Cowboys, fell off a horse early in the shoot, and lost the part. Rather than let him go, the production kept Robert Mitchum on as narrator. His voice opens this film over the migration west and returns at the end to tell the audience how the story finished. He is never once on screen. The life behind that voice was harder than the script. His father James was crushed to death in a rail yard in Charleston, South Carolina in February of 1919, before Robert turned 2. He left home at 14 and rode freight trains across the country. In the summer of 1933, he was picked up for vagrancy in Savannah, Georgia, and put on a chain gang. On the 1st of September 1948, at the height of his fame, he was arrested for marijuana possession and served 50 days between the Los Angeles County Jail and a prison farm at Cosmatos. The conviction was thrown out in 1951, and the studio's certainty that it would finish him proved wrong. He married Dorothy Spence in 1940 and stayed married for 57 years. 3 children came of it: James, Christopher, and Patrine. On the 1st of July 1997, at about 5 in the morning, he died in his sleep at home in Santa Barbara. Dorothy found him. He was 79, 5 weeks short of 80, and lung cancer and emphysema took him. His body was cremated and the ashes were scattered at sea into the Pacific Ocean. There is no grave for Robert Mitchum, no headstone, and no cemetery to visit. The narrator of this film is the only voice that knows how the story finishes. Robert Mitchum told the audience where everybody ended up and then left no address of his own. A crypt above the Hollywood Hills holds one of them. Another is sealed in a church wall in Pacific Palisades. Panola County, Texas has one. The Pacific keeps the last.